the new year, January 2021. It's such a pleasure to be here with you tonight with a panel of guests, which we'll be introducing shortly, to discuss the topic parenting during lockdown. It is a pertinent topic for many of you and many of us who have children, whether they be young children, teenagers, adolescents, and it is a challenging time. And we want to discuss real talk tonight. We want to talk about what it's like as a parent during lockdown. We're going to hear from parents, a parent's perspective, real life stories, and also some strategies for how we support each other and how you can support yourself, your children during lockdown. It is a topical issue. Nationally, we've heard from our government, Boris Johnson, in the last 24 hours, who have made a public statement, a written statement to parents across the UK. And we want to hear what you've got to say about that. So whether you're tuning in from online within the UK, whether you're abroad, because we do have people tuning in from the Caribbean, USA, the African continents, Europe, wherever you're tuning in from, we want to hear your views. So please go ahead. Also subscribe to our channel, put your questions in. We will make every attempt to answer your questions tonight. If you're in the Zoom room, please make your comments known if you're on Facebook or indeed on Instagram. We want to hear your views tonight. And so as we move forward for 2021, we have so much in store for you. And thank you for your feedback. We had so much feedback for our 2020 series and the many topics that we covered. And we want to hear your views for topics as well for 2021. It really is all about you, not just about ourselves. So I just want to, we, the Women's Ministries, corporate women's ministries of the Church of God of Prophecy, extend our greetings to you. And so at this time, I do wish to introduce my co-host for tonight, none other than Alni. Over to you, Alni. Lovely to see you. And I love your colours tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joyce. It's so nice to be here again. And I'm really looking forward to our discussions. And I'm hoping, as you said, that a lot of our parents are going to join us this evening. So I'm glad to be here. And I hope that everyone will enjoy, just sit back and relax. As Joyce mentioned, that our discussion will be parenting during lockdown. I know as a parent, and I've got grandchildren, I've got to be there to support my children. On most days, I would ring my daughter and sometimes my son, and I would ask them, how are you getting on? Because, you know, having to homeschool 3 children, it's a lot. So as a parent and as a grandparent, my heart really goes out to parents today. So I hope that you're going to really enjoy the discussions and the tips. And as Joyce said, do ask questions, because that's what we're here for. So just sit back and enjoy yourself with us this evening. And at this time, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I'm going to hand over right now to Monica.
Hi everyone, Monica Anderson here. For those who don't know me, it's such a privilege to be invited to be on the panel this evening, and I'll be covering the topic of well-being and mental health of our children and young people. Please do send in questions, because I think that we're able to at least support each other. We don't have all the answers, but what we can do is share our experience. I'm a mum and a grandma of 1.5. I've got one due in March. So I know that it's challenging for our parents and for grandparents who've got caring responsibilities. So please make every effort to share your knowledge with us, share your questions, so we can support you as best we can. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Susan Graham. I'm a mother of 4 and I also have a grandchild. And tonight I'm going to be sharing with you about my own personal testimony of how I've been coping through lockdown and some of the things that I've had to look at and I've had to address within myself. Thank you, Sister Joyce and Sister Alni, for inviting me to be on this panel. And I look forward to all the discussions here tonight. God bless you.
Good evening. It's such a joy to be with you all. My name is Dorrit Jacobs. I'm married with 2 beautiful daughters and a fabulous granddaughter. I thank God and I'm really honored to be on this panel. And I trust that as we go through the various discussions that we will have a positive impact on you all. I'm coming from an educational standpoint. So any questions you may have in terms of support that you need from schools, I'm hoping that we'll be able to help and to give you some guidance in that area. God bless you.
Hello, everybody. I am Michelle Chiameka, and it's a privilege for me to be here on the Connect series. I am a mother of 3 children. I have one who's 4 years old, and she's in primary school. I have an 11-year-old who's in secondary school, and I have a 14-year-old who's also in secondary school. So I thoroughly understand the juggling aspect of this time that we're in. I moved from working with my 4-year-old doing phonics, reading, writing, to monitoring my 11-year-old who's also on the autistic spectrum, doing trigonometry, Pythagoras theory, but also trying to get him to focus, relax on the things that need to be done. But then I have a 14-year-old as well who needs attention and time as well to help him motivate. He is obviously concerned because the goalpost for his second GCSEs is moving, so he's not sure where the end game is. And I'm here tonight to just talk about my experience. I'm also a business owner with my husband, so I know what it's like at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you've got the children into bed. You sit down and you've got to decide between reading 160 emails or reading your Bible for devotion. So I'm coming from that point of view. So do not hesitate to send questions and I'll try and answer them as I can. I also previously used to work as an academic at a university, and I was the Director of Student Support and Engagement. So I thoroughly understand also the aspect of university education and the stresses that can go with that. And if you need any help on that, please, again, do not hesitate to send questions and I can try and answer them. Thank you again for having me on the panel.
Thank you, panelists. We're really looking forward to sharing with you. And at this time, in everything that we do, we always like to bring an element of worship because the majority of us are Christians, and our faith played a significant part in what we do. So at this time, I would like to introduce our psalmist, and her name is Donisha Payton, and she's a 30-year-old wife and full-time, and she's a mother of 4, and she's from London. She is a worship director from the Church of God of Prophecy in Wembley. She owns a clothing line named Highly Favored. Her latest venture called Dawn's Kitchen. She loves to sing and encourage others with love and kindness. So just sit back and enjoy our psalmist this evening, Donisha Payton.
Worthy, worthy, Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. All the saints and all the saints and angels, they bow before your throne. Yes, they do. And all the elders cast their crowns before the Lamb of God and say, you are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. All the glory, Lord. You are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all, Jesus. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. All the glory, Lord. You are worthy of it all. Worthy, worthy. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. Yes, you deserve the glory. Day and night, night and day. Yes, Lord. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. You are worthy, Lord. Yes, you are. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. You deserve it, Lord. Yes, you do. You are worthy of it all. Yes, you are. You are worthy of it all. Jesus, for from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Worthy is your name, worthy, worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise.
Thank you, Donisha. Yes, he is worthy to be praised.
Amen. That was just
Yeah.
really beautiful and very soothing. Thank Dornisha, as Ali, as you've said, and you read Dornisha's biography. She's got 4 children, and I do know that those children are pretty young.
Right.
And she's got 2 businesses. She's
Yeah.
it's called
In the
Island Savings and
clothing. Mm.
in the clothing line. I remember purchasing something from her, and she's now turning her hands to Dawn's Kitchens. When I spoke to her, I actually said we could do with you on the show tonight, because how do you manage to look after 4 very young children? Run 2 businesses. When I
Right.
rang her today, she was in the kitchen and she was doing cooking, and yeah, it's just amazing. And I mean, it is tough. And as a mother of 4 children myself, I've got 4 children. My youngest will be turning 18 in February. So I've got 2 teenagers still, and 2 older ones. But I can't imagine being in lockdown with
Mm.
4 young children and
Yeah. Mm.
trying to work and school them at the same
Mm.
time, and meet the demands of your job and do everything. And there's almost an assumption that, you've got the space in your house. I know that we struggle working, the children needing spaces to do,
Mm.
4 of them doing different things, so
Mm.
we want to hear the real deal. We can't pretty this up.
Not
I
at
know
all.
it's tough out there, and I know some people are really pulling their wear out. No matter how much of a parent you are and how patient you are as a parent, this must be really challenging, and we do want to hear from you. We do want to hear the real deal, because it's pointless us doing this chat show and we're not
Yeah.
talking about the real deal. And of course, it has its impact on children's mental health as well. And we will be hearing from one of our panelists today, Monica, who's an expert in that area, because it must also, not only the parent, but just thinking about the impact on the children and the worry and the concern. My own son, I had to do a lot of motivating to try and get him back on track after March, because for some of them it felt like they've been on a big long holiday, and trying to get them focused has not been easy. So yeah, it's difficult. And of course, families, we're not just talking about wife and husband and your 2.5. We've got families in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and we want to cater for everyone on this program tonight. So without any further ado, just to thank Dornisha again. And yeah, there are times, I don't know about you, Alni, but I know there were times when, that song, Worthy, sometimes you just have to kind of just lift your hands and just say, God, I just need your help. Just intervene in this situation, and,
Yes.
draw deep into your faith and draw deep
Yeah.
within.
Yes.
Something within just keeps you
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
through these
Yeah.
challenging times. It's not easy.
Yes, I agree. One of the thing I said to my daughter is to sometimes have some very soft worship songs like that we've just listened to in the background, because as you said, Joyce, the pressure on the parents and trying to, especially if they're limited spaces, to do homeschooling. So we have to really tap in and have some soft background music, songs that would help to just encourage them. And for us, that's what sometimes keep a lot of parents going.
Mm. And of course, you know, it's looking after your own mental health, and we'll hear a bit more about that.
Mm.
You know, but the reality is, you know, that the work that's taken place over the last year with the footballer, you know, Rashford, who has done this phenomenal work, fighting for you know, the school meals
Mm.
for
Yeah.
children. You know, it's been phenomenal. We'll hear more about that. So I think now, without any further ado, if we bring our panelists on, you'll hear a little bit more about their backgrounds, and yeah, let's hear from our panelists tonight. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
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 Hey.
You know, you can't with the Zoom. I don't know about you. You can't help but just putting your hand up and doing this little wave. It's almost like it comes natural. You just have to do that way. But now, welcome
Yeah.
and thank you all for agreeing to join the panel tonight. And it's real talk tonight, parenting during lockdown. So, without any further ado, I'm going to invite Monica Graham. She'll say a little bit. We have got her profile, but it's always more interesting to hear directly from the speaker. Just so you know a
Yeah.
little bit about her background. I think it's important if all our panels say a bit about their background and then just go straight into your and sharing today. Over to Monica Graham.
Thank you for that introduction, Joyce. And no one can let go of my maiden name, Graham. I haven't been Graham for over 30 years, but I appreciate it anyway. I am 27 plus years a social worker in terms of background, and ended up that career as a social work manager. So I do have some context to bring to what I'm going to talk about shortly. In that time, obviously, I worked specifically with children and families and managed people who worked with children and families where there were mental health issues. So I hope that what I'll be sharing tonight will encourage someone to know that you're not on your own. I think if there's any message I can leave, it is that as parents, you can only do your best. No one's expecting you to do more than that. But the focus of the next few minutes will be around the well-being of our children and young people and their mental health. So just to give a little bit of background, I think I did mention earlier I'm a mother of adults now and a grandmother of a 2-year-old. And it's just as important to consider the experience of our children, no matter how young they are, during this COVID pandemic. I don't think we can underestimate the impact of the COVID pandemic and the restrictions that have come upon all of us on our children and young people. Their reaction to loss, because many of them have experienced that. And loss isn't only about bereavement, it's also about losing social connectivity. It's about losing that ability to freely go out, whether it be to the park without any restriction or meeting up with friends. So those restrictions can act on the mental health of our children and young people. I'm not going to bore you with statistics, but just wanted to mention a couple of things that the Mental Health Foundation drew out in some work that they did. And they were claiming that mental health affects 1 in 10 young people, and it can range from depression, anxiety, conduct disorders, and often these things are happening throughout the lives of our children and our young people. And according to Ofsted, there are some 12 million people here in the UK. And this particular statistics really shook. But alarmingly, 70% of our children and young people have experienced some form of mental health problem where the intervention has come either not early enough or too late to support that child or young person. What I want to emphasise is that good mental health is not just important in adults, but also in our children and young people. If you're going to explore this particular subject, the well-being of our children, say, I think what I'd encourage you to do is to take full note of what's happening in your children's lives. Now, I've got nieces and nephews also, extended family, and where you've got your child or young person spending a lot of time in their bedroom or isolating themselves, if you see changes in their behaviour that give you cause for concern, don't or try not to ignore it. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to rush off to the doctor, but there are lots of different ways that we can try and support our young people through the challenges of the time we're living in. These are unprecedented times. We don't have a textbook for dealing with this. Who would have thought that for nearly a year, your children would only have had, at best, a couple of months, 3 months the max, in the school education system? No one would have dreamt it. Neither would you have dreamt that you'd have to take on the role of being a teacher, disciplinarian, and all of those other things, as well as trying to do your normal work and also carry out business if that's what you're involved with. So I don't take any of that for granted. My daughter-in-law, just to personalise this a little bit, with her, my 2-year-old grandson Israel, and today she sent me some pictures, just showing some of the things that she is doing. So when she notices Israel literally doing things that he ordinarily doesn't do, tearing around the room more than he normally would do, she says, "Okay, Israel, hats and coats on, no matter what the weather is, if it's not too bad, let's go out for a walk," just to give him that space to be able to leave the home. The other thing that she started to do with him to help to keep him focused and entertained is cooking. I'm sure a lot of you have been doing that anyway, but he's been making cupcakes too. So he's stirring, sitting in his high chair, stirring the cake mix, and then helping to decorate and also eat the food. Again, trying to ensure that we are keeping our children as centred as we possibly can. And if I were to just draw your attention to some information that I gleaned while I was doing a little bit of research around this, things that can help our children and young people stay mentally well. The next slide will give you one of those pointers to try and support our understanding of that. So being physically in good condition. So that's about eating a balanced diet and getting regular exercise. And that might be a challenge when kids are at home and want to keep dipping into the biscuit or the crisps. Exchange that with fruit. Let there be lots of fruit and vegetables, carrot sticks, and so forth lying around. Having time and the freedom to play indoors, and I know maybe outdoors not so much, but if you have a garden, they can spend time in the garden and try and be creative with those play times. If they are living in a block of flats and maybe can't go outside as you'd like to, then create a space within the home that can give them that sense of being in a different environment. Being part of a family that gets along most of the time, is also quite good. Now, no one's expecting any parent, particularly if you've got more than 2 or 3 children in the home, for there always to be calm and everyone getting on. But if we can encourage there to be some good entertainment and good relations, that also will help the child's mental health. One trick in doing that is maybe sitting and having a family meal. Rather than people sitting on trays and so forth, sit together at the table where you can talk. Taking part in local activities for young people. Again, I think there are some restrictions with that, but nonetheless, when you go for your daily walk, if you're able to meet up with one other friend or neighbour, then that can help as well to ensure the young people are kept in track. Other factors that are also important, this is not to go unnoted, and please don't see this as me trying to teach you who already know, the term is grandmothers to suck eggs. But for a child to feel understood, valued and safe, really important in this current situation that we're in. So the child doesn't feel as though they are getting under your feet or getting in your way. Being interested in life and having opportunities to enjoy them. Again, I know it's hard to motivate our children at times, but there are more things on the television that can create that interest in life. Being optimistic. For parents, I think one of the things I have had to really work hard on, and many of you may or may not know, I lost my husband through this pandemic in March of last year. And I was very realistic with my own feelings, but each of us as members of our family created space to be able to grieve, but be able to have hope. And as the parent, I had to kind of generate that sense of, we do have a tomorrow. Daddy's not here, but we still have hope because of the Christ that is in us. Being able to learn and having opportunities to succeed. And again, these aren't huge things, small things. If your child couldn't cook before, maybe start cooking lessons. If they couldn't sew, get needle and thread out. All these things are part of their learning also. Accepting who they are and recognising that they are good at it. Everybody's abilities are different, but each of us can do something, and it's celebrating those positive experiences. Having a sense of belonging in our family. We know that certainly for schools and communities, a number of children can't be in school, but nonetheless, we can generate this sense of each child feeling as though they belong. And clearly using Zoom to connect with other relatives they haven't seen for a while will also support that. Feeling they have some control over their own life. And I know there are always challenges if you don't have the space in your home to create individual locations for each of your children. How about making their bed into a tent for the younger ones? For the older ones, maybe taking it in turns to sit at the table rather than everyone trying to cram around, so they feel as though they have a little bit of control over their free time and also their time with their family members. I think the other thing, or the final thing I'd like to mention here, is having the strength to cope when something is wrong and the ability to solve problems. We do have very resilient children, and that's not to be taken lightly. Children can get through quite a lot of things, but I think we don't either take it for granted that we acknowledge that strength that our children have and support them in problem solving. I've got some resources that you can use to find out a little bit more information, and those are all on the internet. You can get access to them. Care Family have a website that you can go on that can also give you booklets and guidance in terms of resources for parents generally, and also around the coronavirus pandemic and being a parent during this. The Mental Health Foundation also have a link that can give you some guidance and tips. Young Minds are also a useful website to go to, again, supporting the mental health of your young people. Contact a Family, Kidscape, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, CAMS, and also Papyrus, Prevention of Young Suicide. I had one young woman who, I think she's a 13-year-old, who was really struggling with being at home and attempted to take her own life. And the mother asked me to provide support to that young person. So this is real for a lot of our children, that they are struggling to get through. But I hope that some of the things I've mentioned tonight have rung true with you, and been able to give you an opportunity to at least know there are resources out there and things that can help. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Monica. That was really, really insightful. And actually, I think we could all connect with what you were saying, and really, really powerful and heartfelt, because there's something for everyone to take away. But also, thank you for sharing some of your own personal journey and what you've been through. And we would like to say condolences, give our condolences to you in experiencing your own loss. We all knew Fabian, but thank you for taking the time to be on here tonight and for sharing with us. And we will show that we'll have a bit more time to discuss some of the tips that you've shared, but they're really important ones for each and every one of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Without any further ado, we'll save the questions till the end, although Ali and I have to hold ourselves back sometimes. But we're going to go over to our mother of the panel, Dr. Michelle, who's going to give it us real, Michelle, exactly how it's been. We want to hear from you, warts and all, because there are mothers listening and they know the real deal. So we can't pretty up the deal because they know. So just say it as it is. And yeah, thank you very much. Over to Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, I've been fortunate. I'm a mother of 3 children. And I can say that this situation and the time that we're doing at the moment with homeschooling is hard. Look, I've got grey hair. I never had grey hair before, trying to juggle the children as I do. I think that it is hard for the children as well. My 4-year-old, she obviously started school in September, and she just keeps asking, when can I go back? What's wrong? Have I done something wrong? And she's now asked me, oh, Mum, am I going to get the coronavirus? I'm like, no. You, as a parent, have to guide them, but also monitor your own stresses as well, so that you do not put your own stress on the children. With my 4-year-old, like I said, I do obviously do phonics and everything else with her. She is now getting used to Zoom meetings, and at 4 years old, you don't expect her to have to do that. Sometimes she doesn't want to do it. Sometimes she's not enthusiastic at all, and even though the teacher's there talking to her, telling her what she needs to do, she doesn't want to do it. And I don't necessarily force her to do it at that time neither. If she doesn't want to have her 9 o'clock Zoom meeting and she wants to go and play with Peppa Pig, then I allow her to do that. And then later on, when she's ready and she's inclined, I can do that. I think the first week of lockdown, she was very enthusiastic about it. And I can see the longer this period goes on with the lockdown, she's disengaging from the activities that are there. My second son, like I said to you, is 11 and he is autistic. And I struggle with him because if I don't keep him on task for what to do, he will not focus, it will not get done. And obviously sometimes it takes him a longer time to do the work that is given. So even though his school day may finish at 3:15, I'm still having to go over things with him, or he has got homework to do, and sometimes he's up till 10, even 11 o'clock. In between all that, I'm still trying to look at my own emails, trying to answer my own emails as well, or call the office because something needs to be done. With my son, I worry because he didn't have his year 6 experience of finishing school because obviously COVID started. So he never had his end of year stat. He never had the end of year party that they normally have. He never had his proper send off from primary school, and that has affected him, and it affected him emotionally because he never said goodbye properly. He wasn't able to transition to secondary school properly because he couldn't go. And obviously that then worried him because he couldn't go to see the teachers, he couldn't go to see the classroom, he didn't know how he was going to get there. So you can imagine the stress levels were really, really high. The secondary school were fantastic. They called, they sent pictures, and we were able to go and visit one day, which kind of helped him because he was actually having nightmares of going to secondary school, and he didn't want to leave his primary school. And the stress for him and for us as a family was really, really difficult. When he started secondary school, obviously he went in September, he was loving it, and now I'm struggling because I feel he has got so used to being at home, he doesn't want to go outside. So even at the end of the day, when I'm like, okay, let's get our coats on, let's go out. I mean, we've had snow here for about 2 weeks. Let's go out and make a snowman. Let's go and throw snowballs. If it's in the back garden, that's fine. But if it's to take him outside and go for a walk, I can see he's getting a bit anxious. He's getting too used and comfortable to being home. And for me, the longer the lockdown is, potentially the harder it's going to be to get him back into secondary school. And we're going to have to do that transition process all over again. For my older son, I worry for him because he's having to deal with the stresses of home, but also the anxiety about GCSEs. And like I said, we've recently had an online parents' evening with him, and the goalposts have shifted because he doesn't know anymore what percentage is this coursework. Is that exam going to be with 50% like we were told? And obviously the teachers themselves can't give us any information because they don't know until the government decides what they're going to be doing with the GCSEs. They don't know themselves, and for him that's an additional stress. Furthermore, at 14 he's not used to sitting down in front of a computer all day. At school they've got a teacher, they've got practicals, so in that sense he can be motivated to do the work. After he's done the first lesson and then he's got another lesson after that online, I can see he's getting fed up with it himself. Also, because his brother is autistic, he's having to deal with that every single day, and I can see that getting to him. Before, when they go to school, they separate, and that's his time to be with his friends, do what he wants to do, and then he comes back into the home environment, and he can cope with that. But having to cope with that every day is not good for him. Plus, as a mother, even though I've got the younger child and I've got my older child, because he is autistic, he does get more attention because I've got to get him to focus. My little girl can play. Later on, I can come and do some work with her. And then obviously with my older one, I do try and make time with him as well. One thing I would say with this lockdown, as a parent, you've got to manage your own stress levels. If not, it's going to showcase on the children, and that's not fair. They haven't asked to be in this situation. And yes, you know, sometimes it may take you longer to do a particular project that you could have done in one day. It's now taking you weeks. Or for myself, I'm having to go into the office in the evening or leave everything I need to go in the office during the weekend to get my own job done whilst I'm looking after children. It's very, very stressful. I think with my autistic child, I keep on top of everything by being involved with local organizations that deal with autism so that I have somewhere to sound off, but also I can see what other parents are doing and then be encouraged to try that in my own self, in my own house. So for example, I recently had to buy him a weighted vest, which will hopefully make him feel more secured so that he can focus on his work. I've bought him a timer which is visual, so he can see when the time is up. So whilst it's going through, the sun is going through, he knows he should be focused until eventually it goes through and he needs to turn it for the next lesson. And for my daughter, it's just play and enjoying her. I think at this whole process, we're very fortunate that we have our children with us, and it's letting them know that they're loved, that they're needed and they're wanted, and encouraging them as much as possible to do what needs to be done. At the end of the day, when they finish, we go for a walk sometimes. If they don't want to go for a walk, I don't, force them. We will play Scrabble, we will, play ball games, whatever it may be. I know with my boys, they're so used to doing football, basketball, rugby, and they've gone from being very active to doing nothing, and they do struggle with that. So sometimes my husband takes them out for a run. I take them out for a run, they run, I walk, but either way, we're getting them out of the house. And I'd encourage any parent to do that. Sometimes if it's been a really hectic day and my husband's coming late, as soon as I see his lights coming into the driveway, I've got my coat on, I've got my shoes on, I'm going out for a walk. Even if it's just 20 minutes around the block, I just need that fresh air to help me calm down so I can deal with my children. But yeah, my time is up and I've got so much more to say. But it's just being able to manage yourself so that you can help the children if they need that help.
Wow. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing, and you'll get a chance to share some more. But something you said. I mean, we're not going to comment, but I've just got to say this. But I just never thought of it when you said that. Your 4-year-old Jennifer, that she thought she'd done something wrong, why she's can't go to school, and that never occurred to me or even crossed my mind. So a child could be internalizing these changes and just blaming themselves that something's wow. It's just, yeah, there's some really powerful things that you have shared around the transition as well of the children and not being able to say goodbye. And I think that feeds into what Monica talked about in terms of loss, the connectivity, the loss in connectivity, and that can't be easy. Well, okay, let me be fair. Without any further ado, I'm going to go to Susan, because we're going to get stuck into this because I can see that this is really it's the real stuff. Susan, you're going to share with us some of your own personal experiences as well, and just say a little bit about your background as well. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Again, it's lovely to be with you this evening. Just sharing a bit about my background. Most of you will know me if you're from Church of God of Prophecy, but I have spent over 20 years working with children and in some cases young people within the church as the National Children's Director. I also have just completed my Master's in International Development, and I've also done some work with children and families. And I just want to share with you today my personal experience through lockdown. And I'm not going to take loads of time, but one of the things that I realized is that as a parent, and I'm going to talk from a parent's perspective, we can judge ourselves in trying to be all things to all men. And as Michelle and Monica have alluded to in terms of your stresses, we don't look at ourselves. We are parenting in lockdown, but we need to be looking at ourselves first. I always believe that if I'm going to be impactful as a parent, I need to check where I am within this lockdown. And I know that we believe and we have faith, but I also believe sometimes that we don't get the balance right. And sometimes we are rushing around doing what we need to do. And it was lovely just to hear Michelle talk about when her husband comes in, she goes straight out and has that time. And so when the first lockdown, like a lot of people, it just seemed like an extended holiday. You know, your children were at home. I have adult children. And prior to lockdown, you have your own space. And we've talked about that. And then all of a sudden, your space that you have is invaded. Everybody's home. When people are working from home or you have meetings, you're scrambling to find space to have your meetings. Some meetings are at the same time. And so it's having that communication and that compromise. But one of the things that I experienced in the first lockdown was that we were constantly hearing about those that we knew had passed. And this was happening over a period of time. And for myself, initially, you hear it, you absorb it, but then I had to accept the fact that all this news was impacting me. It was impacting my own well-being. I had to quickly realize that the environment that we're in is not the same, and that there are some things that I can control and there are some things that I can't control. And so I had to focus on the things that I could control about me, about my own well-being. You know, Michelle Obama says this: to be a good parent, you need to take care of yourself so that you can have physical and emotional energy to take care of your family. If I didn't try and focus and pinpoint where I was, I would not have any impact, be able to support family the way that I was supposed to. So I had to step back a little bit and accept where I was, accept how I was feeling about certain things. And one thing that I did do was find somebody to talk to. We sometimes put ourselves under pressure, as I've said earlier, and we feel that we, you know, as parents, we have to get this right, we have to do that right. But it's okay to say, you know, I'm struggling with this, and this is impacting me. This lockdown was also impacting me. And it was to have a conversation with somebody. And we're not here to judge each other. We're here to keep it real and be honest that there are some things that we struggle with. And whilst we struggle with those things, we have to be honest with ourselves and seek help, seek somebody to talk to. One of the things that I used to do to alleviate my stress was to go swimming prior to lockdown. Love swimming. So now all the swimming baths are shut. And I then took up walking. It initially just a little bit, but now I walk nearly every day for more than an hour. I had to put some time in for me to alleviate the stresses and the things that I was feeling as an individual. And I thank my sister and myself, we walk, social distance, and we walk. And that has really helped me. The other thing that I looked at was also about what I do as an individual within the home and how I communicate. Michelle spoke about space, and I've talked about the spacings that we have when we're all on different Zooms. One of the things that was so beneficial to us as a family, and I have older adult children, was to have a candid, real conversation about how everybody was feeling, non-judgmental. Yes, we believe in God. Yes, we have faith, but there are some feelings. And sometimes I think that we allow our environment to sometimes mask or restrict sometimes how we're really feeling. And so we've had these free and open conversations where we're listening to each other and hearing how each other is feeling. And sometimes you just have to deal with that and hear the truth of where you are as a family. And we used those conversations and those experiences as prayer points. We would pray into how each other was feeling, condemn each other and say, you shouldn't be like that, or, you know, the word of God says this. We use that, that's important, and we use that to underpin, but we need to give space to talk. We need to give space to have a conversation and to share how we're feeling. I've had the privilege to also look after my grandson whilst I've been in lockdown, and I realise that I'm not as young as I used to be. He's full of energy, he's 4 years old, and I was having to switch the different things that I did with him quite on a regular in order for him to be focused. And it was very tiring. It was at times. I was glad when I could hand over to my husband and say, you know what, I just need a break. And that doesn't mean that I don't love him, doesn't mean that we don't have so much fun, but the physical element of having to meet his needs and so forth really took its toll at one point. And one thing that was talked about was about cooking. He loves cooking. And again, like Monica shared about her grandson, my grandson, we did cupcakes, we did flapjacks. The last time he was here, I just got him the potato peeler because he got the stool in the kitchen, stood on it, he said, Abuela, I want to help. And so I gave him the potatoes, and he felt so proud that he was peeling the potatoes and he was getting things done. And we had a conversation in the kitchen. I put some music on. For people that don't know, we're quite foodies. We're foodies in our house. We love cooking and we like trying different things. And that was another way of us actually alleviating the stress of having to be in such close proximity all the time. I'd put some music on in the kitchen whilst I'm cooking. I'd be dancing in the kitchen. It sounds silly, but that's how I used to cope. whilst I'm cooking, and just releasing that tension and that stress of being in this space all the time. Yes, I have my time of prayer, I have my time of reflection, but you don't have that physical outlet that you probably would have had previously towards. I did have to really question at one point throughout the lockdown when I found myself actually crying a lot. And it was to do with loss. It was to do with the constant hearing of people that you knew passing. And it really did have an impact on me. And one of the lovely things was to find somebody to talk to about that and not feel judged. So I'm going to hand over back to the hosts. Just want to keep it real that we go through, regardless of our faith, we are human and our humanity is real. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, you know, on Connect Live, on Connect, it's real talk. We don't pretty things up, we say it as it is. And thank you, Susan, because it felt a little bit like that in my home, a bit claustrophobic with everyone in the house, and it's got a little bit heated at times, but I think I'll hold that one for later. When you got three burly men, and it gets heated, and you're trying to do what you used to do when they were boys, trying to part them and things like that. It doesn't quite work, but yeah, we do have to look at strategies to let off that steam and to just you know, bring just calm the atmosphere and just bring people back together. So no, that's excellent. Okay, without any further ado, we're going to go to Dorette. Dorette, please remember to say your background, where you're from, what you do, and just share for us. Thank you. Over to Dorette.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for this amazing opportunity to share a little bit about myself and where I'm coming from professionally, and hopefully what I can contribute to in this discussion. As you hear, my name's Dorette Jacobs. I'm married to a nice young man, married for 30 some odd years, I've forgotten now. But I have two beautiful children and one amazing grandchild, Amaya Eden. In terms of my professional background, I've been working in education for 19 years now. Started off with working as a teaching assistant for a couple of years, working with kids with special education needs. And that really opened my eyes to the different ways how people learn and the absolute support that they needed. And I really thanked God that I was put into that place where often a lot of these children, their parents themselves weren't able to cope and often didn't know what was available for their child. And by me being in that position, I was able to ensure that the support that they both deserved and needed was given to them. I then moved into the area of pastoral care as an assistant head of year, and then very swiftly within 6 months moved into being a head of year, and I did that role for 15 years. A very challenging role, looking after the whole child, not just academically, but I very quickly found out that if a young person was to learn and to reach their maximum potential, they had some emotional issues that they had to overcome. My role was really to find out what those barriers were and to help them overcome that barrier, and also to put support in place so that they could thrive. So that was 15 years. And I remember the other day I was at work, and this young, tall, 6-foot man stood in front of me and he goes, "Hi, miss." I went, "Do I know you?" And he burst out laughing and said, "Miss, you were my head of year." That was about 14 or so years ago. But he said, "Miss, every time I tried to do something wrong, your voice would be in my ear, or the encouragement that used to give me." And he thanked me for all that encouragement. And if no one else came with that, that would have been worth my while. So this role cannot be done alone. We have to work very closely with families to ensure that they know what schools can actually do for them and the support that's in place for them. We are now living in a very different time, the word that's probably overused now, unprecedented times. We have never been this way before. Families have never been this way before. Schools have never been this way before. But we are trying our very best to support families in a way that we've not had to do before. So when we put ourselves in the place of a child, and it's okay, why is this child probably doing what they are doing? Is this out of character? And I always say to myself, and I say to my colleagues that I work with, if a child is behaving out of character, there must be a reason. And it's taking that time to sit down with that young person to find out, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And right now, the child does not want to hear about A levels, GCSEs, homework. They just want someone to sit down with them and say, Miss, this is what's it all about. This is why I'm behaving the way I am. And you sit down and give them the support that they need. So now we're in this pandemic. How can schools offer support? Teachers are also going through this because they're having to teach remotely. Now, for some teachers prior to this, the most they could do was switch on the computer, not a lot more than that. And they're having to know how to use Zoom, how to do narrated PowerPoints, how to use Teams, how to set up all sorts of things. And we've never, ever done that before. But even through doing that, we recognize that families are facing an enormous challenge. And they're very varied. Parents are finding out that haven't got enough devices to use. So schools are sending all this work, but they haven't got the device in the home to use. Or you have 2 devices for 5 people. We have families we've heard from Michelle, she's got a child in Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3, and Key Stage 4. That's a huge task for any parent to manage. What I would encourage all parents to do, if you are facing any form of difficulty, contact your schools. Your schools are there to support. That's what we are there for. As a head of year, my main role was to ensure that families were supported, the young person was supported. The impact of this pandemic has been far-reaching. Nationally, I was on a webinar only this week, and the figures that they were spouting out were really alarming. Nationally, we have seen a huge increase in referrals to social services because parents are unable to cope, children are unable to cope. And this is not standing in judgment. The reality is this pandemic has really affected everybody in a magnitude of different ways. Some can cope, but only barely, and some cannot cope. So what can schools do? We need to be there to support. We need to signpost families to the different agencies that are able to help. What we need to know, tell the schools what you are going through. And as a parent, if you cannot cope with the work that you are being given, if your child is unable to do it, if your child doesn't feel like doing it, do not stress. Do not stress. We have never been this way before. Just let the schools know that your child or your children is experiencing some form of difficulty, whatever that difficulty is, and we will try and support you the best way we can. I would encourage you to inform the schools of any change of circumstances. We know that a lot of parents have been furloughed, they've been made redundant, they've lost their jobs completely. So finances have been affected a huge amount. So if there's no finance in the house, the possibility is there's no food. And that's the reality. There's no food. Many schools have got access to food banks, to computers, to all sorts of support. Trust your school, ring them up and let them know that you are in need. It is not a shame. It's gone past shame now. We need to be honest and real. If you yourself can't do it, find someone that can ring on your behalf. The issues that we have is that although the government has said that schools are open for vulnerable children, we have discovered that only 4% of those places are being taken up. You may say, I can't cope, but is your child actually eligible or entitled to a place during this time? And I suspect a lot of you out there who are listening, your child would fit into this category. Now, the DfE have actually given a definition of what they class is vulnerable. It's a long, extensive list, and I can let Joyce have that list at the end of this platform. But the chances are, if you go on www.gov.uk, you will find out whether or not your child fits in this category and really could benefit from being in school with all the appliances that are available, the devices are available, and there are teachers in school that are teaching key workers and all vulnerable children. So it will be quite useful for you to find out if your child fits into that category. Make use of the places that are available. If your child cannot cope, and I'll say this again because I think it's really important, please contact the schools. We are here to help. This impact has gone across the whole families, grandparents, uncles, aunties. It is impacting the whole family. So what I would say, do not be ashamed. Contact your school. If you're not satisfied with what your school is doing, you can go even further. I will say, even in this time, your voice needs to be heard. And I have pleasure in handing over back to the host, Joyce.
Oh, thank you, Joyce and Ali. Oh wow, that is so insightful, and thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure not many of us knew all of that, and I'm sure there are people out there, parents out there that are listening, that have heard some of this really the nuggets that you have shared. That is really helpful. So we've really got, just relax, we're going to have a bit of a discussion now, and yeah, if you've got a drink, just have a drink. It's water, folks, it's water, there's nothing else in there. And we're just gonna, yeah, we just want to have a bit of a discussion, because everything that you've shared tonight is so rich. And I just wanted to, if I just start with you, Dorrit, what you've just shared about, there's only 4% of children that could take up the places. Why do you think people aren't taking up the places? And what do you think we could do to support people and children, families and children?
I think there are a number of reasons. The first, and I think the main reason, is that a lot of parents are not aware that their children possibly fall into this category. So it's really important that they contact their schools to find out whether or not their child or children actually fit in these categories. Secondly, a lot of parents are still don't feel that schools are safe, and that possibly their children could contract the virus and then hence bring it home to families who are ill or clinically vulnerable. So that's something that we have to look into at the moment. Most schools, well, I would say a number of secondary schools have been, I wouldn't say ordered, but have been requested to set up testing sites at their schools. So in case parents were unsure, their child could actually get a rapid flow test at the school to confirm whether or not they have the disease, and that would bring some form of ease of mind that they are okay, not bringing anything back into the home.
Okay, so there's a bit of a, yeah, go ahead.
I think
Go
because
ahead,
obviously my
Michelle.
son has, thank you, because my son has an EHCP, which is a health and educational plan, because of his autism, he is allowed to go to secondary school. And we did try that um, for a week, but we found that, well, I thought that there'd be academic support there for him to help him keep focused on what needs to be done. And it wasn't the case for him within the secondary school that he's at. And so we haven't, sent him back to that. What I do see with my primary school that my daughter goes to, because obviously she has online lessons, is that they are very involved in the children that are there. And so they're learning something, and it's beneficial for me, it seems, to send them to the primary school, but not necessarily to the secondary school, because the teachers are not there. They're being watched by, auxiliary staff and kitchen staff, while they just sit there with the computer. And I just thought it's not worth sending him, for that.
All right. So you've made that choice not to send
Yeah,
him because you feel the input at your school is. I
yeah.
suppose that's maybe other parents are thinking that way. And would we be encouraging parents to have conversations? So I've had someone send a little message through about having the conversations with the school, especially if they're setting about homework. Because I think, Michelle, you said that you can be up till 10 o'clock doing homework, and that can't be good for the child, and it can't be good for you. So is there something about, do we does there need to be more discussion and dialogue with the teachers, and what can we do about that? And Alni, feel free to come in whenever you choose to. So that
I
was a
think
question. I mean,
yeah, for us with my Jonathan, it's not every night I stay up with him, but I do push him to try and get him to do what needs to be done, because then he gets stressed because the workload is piling up. Now, there are some homeworks, which I've just said, okay, you don't need to do that one. Maybe music, because he's not necessarily musically inclined. But then obviously for the key subjects, for his maths, his English or his science, then I do that for him. Because he's autistic, we as parents, we don't necessarily baby him, and we want him to know that life is hard, and therefore you have to work hard to gain something out of it. So it may not be done to the standard or the length that I would expect, but as long as he's tried, he feels he's complete, he's completed something, he's happy, and then I'm happy for him too. I have contacted the school because there was a particular homework and it had to be done on a particular day. And the teacher sent an email to say, if it's not handed in on such a date, she's not marking it. So I emailed her to say, well, that can't be the case for my son. He does have an EHCP. There has to be some differential in the learning. And therefore, do you mind if you hand it in late, marking it so he knows where he is and, can then improve himself accordingly. You just have to take it with each child and, connect with the teachers that are there, like Derek says. I email them. I'm the mother. These are my children. If you need any help, if you want any information, if I need to know something about them, here's my email, here's my telephone number. Do not hesitate to give me a call.
Can I jump in there, Joyce? I
yes.
think that as Michelle was articulately saying, each child is an individual,
Yeah.
and you have to go with what that child is able to do. The emphasis, and Dorrit rightly said, the support is there. My daughter works in a school, and she calls parents because she's not actually physically in the building at school, but from home she calls parents to check in on parents, and also the children to see how they get on and so forth. So avail yourself of the support that's there, but equally, you know your child. You know what your child is capable of, where they get to the stressors that can tip them into either becoming unwell. And obviously, that was the area I was thinking of. What we don't want to do is put our children in a position. Life is stressful enough.
Mm.
Adding to that stress doesn't help the parent, nor the child.
mm,
So I think it's
mm,
about, as Michelle rightly said, she has a timer. So if you say, okay, we're going to spend an hour doing X, and then speak up, as Dorrit said. Don't suffer in silence. One manager used to tell me that all the time. Don't suffer in silence. Let somebody know we're struggling here. What additional support
mm,
is there? And if it's suited, because not one size will fit all. It has to be tailored
exactly.
to the child and also the parents, the environment they're having to work in, with home working, and with their own business and so forth, and also trying to support their children in the midst of that. But we must never sacrifice. We must never sacrifice our mental health or the mental health of our children to get
Mm,
a timeline met, because that's not going to help
that's
anyone. They can catch up later.
right. Mm,
They can catch up later.
I
mm,
think any school that's worth their salt will recognise that, and this is for
mm,
all parents who have children with EHC plans. Is that statement that you have is written for a reason. The government have said that your child should be in school, therefore the support for him needs to be there also. So there should
mm,
be teaching assistants in school. So even if the teacher isn't in school, and more often the teacher won't because they're zooming on the lesson somewhere, but there should be a teaching assistant that comes with his statement to offer that
mm.
support. If that
Very
doesn't
true.
happen, then you have a right to escalate that. But
That's very true.
no child should be under any pressure to do work that they
Mm,
cannot do, particularly in the times that we are living in.
I agree. I
What
agree.
is the details for cabbage?
Mm.
Hello, we can hear one of the children in the background. I think that's really
Give,
important to. She can. Hi, hello, nice to see you.
I
um,
don't know.
I see.
Mm,
it is really important that the communication is there, and you can have that dialogue. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, the Prime Minister wrote an open letter to parents and carers in the last 48 hours or so. And to parents and carers and guardians to say that they've responded, parents and guardians and carers have responded magnificently, with the government having faced sustaining criticism for its handling of the education during the pandemic. But whilst this isn't a political show, I think it's important that we have this debate. And there's a few things here that I wanted to put to the panelists. So the Prime Minister's comments have prompted calls for, inverted commas, real support for families. And of course, on the backdrop of this, Boris has said that classrooms will be closed, but for the vulnerable and children of key workers. And I think that's what we've been sharing. The vulnerable, Michelle, your son is an example with
mhm.
and I know you used initials, but not everybody understands the initials, so it might be helpful to say it in full as well. What did it mean, Michelle?
Because he's on the autistic spectrum, he has what is known as an EHCP plan, which is an education and healthcare plan, and he will have that up until he's 25. And that means that when it comes to academic institutions, there's like Derek was saying, there's certain things that have to put in place for him in that academic institution. So Dorothy's right, he has to have a teaching assistant with him for the full time he's in at school. And obviously the school can then use that to get additional money from the council if they need to have additional resources for him within the school, whether it's the behavioural team coming in or an autism expert coming in, or whatever the school needs to help him to study.
Yeah, thank you so much, because there might be people out there that are not sure what that means. So in this letter, Mr. Johnson has said he's in awe of the way the parents, carers and guardians and children have risen to the challenges of which we all and you have from what you said been facing. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is, yes, it's unprecedented times, but what is the additional, what, if there was the opportunity to say, if Boris Johnson was watching this program tonight, what are the things that we'd say families, the real support that families need? So I just wanted to throw that open. What support are you hearing from an educational point of view, on a personal perspective? What support would be really helpful?
I think for myself, I would like not so much work to be online. Before all of this, I was always telling the children, okay, you can have, half an hour on the computer, half an hour on your telephone. Now they're on it all day, and then the homework is on. And if they want to contact their friends, they're on the computer or they're on the phone. And for me, I would like them to think that there's a lot of work, especially scientific work, that can be done external to the computer. There are some simple and easy experiments that they can do at home or in the wood or in the garden, and I think as teachers, it'd be nice for them to think out of the box so that children can step away from the computer but still learn. I think the other thing I think is very important. I think it'd be nice if they were to do some Zoom session where the children in the class can get used to each other and can see each other. The children are very isolated, even on Teams. They don't see their fellow pupils. They just see the teacher. They have a PowerPoint presentation, and then that's it. So again, whatever communication is obviously typing, but it'd be nice if they say, okay, during tutorial time or form time, children, you students, have 15, 20 minutes together, run a joke, play a game, so that social interaction stay with the children. I think for myself, one thing I found, because they're two boys as well, they are so they've got so much energy. They don't know how to get rid of it. They can play fight, or if they want to go to the garden, but also let the school give them strategies of how to cope with their own energy. What can they do? Exercise sessions. My 11-year-old has PE sessions from school. My 14-year-old doesn't, and he needs them. So why shouldn't he have a session where they tell you, okay, do 10 burpees, do 10 press ups, so that he can get rid of that activity? I do it with them. We put yoga on, have my exercise videos, and I'm like getting them all in. But as a parent, I'm like that. Some parents are not. And these children are sitting down, they're not socializing with their friends, they've got so much energy, they don't know what to do with themselves, and that can breed problems.
That's really, I think that's really important. A really important point. I mean, from an education point of view, and what's your thoughts, Dorrit, on that? From what you're hearing from a pastoral perspective.
I think Michelle raises a valid point. I can only talk for the school that I work with, and we've done just that for next week, that we are getting all kids off their devices, and the pastoral staff have actually created offline creative activities for them to do. So there'll be no academic study as such. They'll be learning, but it will be without the technology. So I think it's a valid point. I think in terms of the young people not socialising, what we have found nationally, please met with us, is that there's an increase in crime, an increase of what they call it, grooming. Young people are getting involved in grooming because a lot of parents can't keep them in the home, unfortunately. So we are trying to put support in for parents to recognise those signs of when that grooming is taking place. I think what Michelle says is very valid. If more schools can go that way in trying to find outside of the box activities for the kids to do, that will really create a better perspective for them. But I think it's a great idea, which I know where I've worked, we have taken that on board already.
Mm. I can see Monica, you're chomping to come in. Please do.
As always. Some of the things that Michelle was saying was really resonating with me, and ideas wise. Now, Dorrit can put the educational bit in about what schools can do, but sometimes you can't wait on schools. So when she mentioned about the exercise and so forth, putting on an exercise video and so on, to burn off that excess energy for older children in particular. I've got an example where some friends of mine who've got children of school age, as you said, my children are all grown up now, but children of school age have connected with other families, and what they do is hold general knowledge quizzes via Zoom, so the kids can
Yeah.
see other children and interact with other children. And they did something I thought was absolutely fantastic. They had a treasure hunt where they had to go out into the community. No, we're restricted to an hour, but even for that hour, if one family this week take the responsibility of saying, well, we'll set it up, they put little what do they call them, clues in the woods and so forth. And then when they got to a particular point, they had to do burpees, and press ups and so on. So they were outside having an activity, and it was structured. Going for a walk can be boring for kids. It's a lot for us adults because we need the exercise. But when they, every maybe 15 minutes of that walk, that hour walk, they've got an activity to do outside, it generates again excitement, something to look forward to, and also can come back and have that interaction with their friends who did the same thing in their own location, but nonetheless, it helps them to reconnect. Remember, I talked earlier about that social connectivity. It helped them to reconnect with others, with their peer groups outside of their family.
Okay, I mean the I know for my son, just that connectivity is really important. I think the older children have got within the rules of COVID can get out and maybe go for a walk with a friend, social distancing and so forth. But I've watched them; they don't want to show themselves on Zoom. They don't want to have an interaction with people at university that they don't really know. I'd look over their shoulders and say, "Put your screen on." They don't want it, and I think you have the different age groups, and there are different needs, isn't there, for the different age group. But I mean, what do you think about schools not opening until the 8th of March? Alni, I'm taking over here, and I don't like taking over. You need to come forward a little bit. Oh gosh, that's better. Yeah. So
When I heard last week, because I was listening to a discussion on LBC with parents who they're very frustrated. Some felt that the children should be back in school. Why just frontline workers' children are allowed back and not others? And for me, I'm in agreement with them. It just seems to be a long time for the children to be away, and waiting till March, it's too much. There's something that Michelle mentioned actually about the children and their interaction, because I know my grandchildren, my son, he's missing his friends, and I think they could have a time when all the children are together. So instead of just the child communicating with the teacher, if they were able to see the children, I think perhaps that would help them to, give them like a 10-minute break just to chat with their friends. And I think that was a good suggestion, that they can have their interaction with their school friends, because a lot of children are missing out on that. But I think 14th of March is too long. It's too long.
And I think I've got 2 points, if you don't mind. Even though they said it's the 14th of March, I mean, people don't
The
realise
8th.
it's also, sorry, people don't
The
realise that
8th.
at the 14th March, the 8th of March, after 2 weeks, they normally have half term in any case. So they'll go for 2 weeks, then have the half term, and then they're going back for May, June. School's finished. You know, are they really going to go back? And I do worry for my son who's in year 10. This is a critical point for his GCSEs. So he would have lost on so much, you know, information and learning that I worry for him. And, you know, the second point that I wanted to make, my son who's 14, he's suddenly gone for a growth spurt and he's feeling very uncomfortable with his height because he feels that he's the only one who's growing. And even though I'm telling him, all your friends are growing too, you're not going to be the only one, because he can't see anybody his height, he thinks he's straight. And, you know, so, you know, it's important for them to see their peers so that they realize as they go through puberty and the body's changing, it's not just them, and they've got other people that they talk to and see to say, oh, okay, this is normal, this is natural.
Absolutely. I mean, what about teachers? Because, you know, in the media, teachers have come up to receive so much criticism, and as Dorrit was saying, they've had to learn Teams, they've had to narrate it online system. It's been a huge change for teachers. So, you know, our sympathies really do go out to all the teachers out there that are having to make this, and they've had to adapt really, really quickly. I mean, what are your thoughts, Dorrit, or indeed Sue? I know you've got grandchildren as well, so a grandchild. You know, what about the teachers? It must be terrible. It must be really, really difficult. I know a teacher, and I don't know. There's this video going round, and this teacher made up a song. I don't know if you've seen it. And during lockdown, have you seen it? And the teacher's playing in lockdown, and when it comes to the song, she just lets out an almighty screech, and then she plays a little bit more, and she lets out another almighty screech. Well, I laughed at it, but I did share it with a friend of mine who's a teacher, and she said to me, "That's exactly how I'm feeling right now. I just want to scream." So, yeah, what would we say to teachers?
Can I say, Joyce, in fact, I'm more towards the parent. I've got more sympathy for the parents than the children, because the parents, than the teachers, because the parents having to do what the teacher should be doing. So I am a bit in between, actually. I feel for the because some parents they've got no teaching skills. Some of them, when it comes to computer, as you said, Michelle, they have to learn different kinds of software. So for me, I'm voting for parents, not teachers.
I think sometimes and I'm only speaking from I don't teach, I'm a pastoral manager, but sometimes we also forget that teachers are parents also, and while some of them will teach, so some may just be an English teacher, they have to still teach maths, biology, chemistry, or all the other subjects. And I've spoken to some colleagues and they're tearing their hairs out just as much as everybody else, because, you know, they've got children in both key stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're struggling like everybody else. But from their teaching part of it, all teachers want to be back in school. It really is not a holiday. They're probably working a lot harder because they're having to do all these Zoom lessons. So 100%, I would say at least 90% of teachers will want to be back in school, but that's where children should be. That's where they learn best. And the longer that they are out of school, it's tragic for them on all fronts, not just academia, but on the social level. They're missing out on interaction, and particularly for primary school kids, because that's the foundation being late.
Yeah.
If you miss out those early years, then it's really difficult to try and catch that back. Not impossible, just difficult. But I think definitely it's better to be back in school. But it has to be in a safe way. We're facing the COVID just as much as everybody else. And yes, a lot of criticism can be levied at school. Some are justifiable, a lot of it isn't. And where we've gone wrong, we've had to put our hands up. But we can only go as fast as Gavin Williamson is telling us to go. If he doesn't give us the instructions, we can't go any further. So it's really government trying to guide the schools, and then often we get 24 hours notice, which is not a lot of time. Sometimes, we're getting emails late at night saying tomorrow the plans we had is completely changed. So it is
Yeah.
difficult for
Yeah,
teachers.
it certainly isn't easy. So, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and I think, Dora has touched a point that we're all in this same thing. We're all in the same boat. We're all in this pandemic. And one of the things that I feel that governs or is pushing some things, fear of the unknown, fear of not being able to do the things that you probably think you could, or fear of not being in control. And you have teachers, like you said, our parents, you have teachers who probably are great, feeling okay that they can manage, but other teachers that can't manage. We're all human. We're all in the same boat. And this unknown has created a space that, as we've said before, we've never been before. And everybody has to navigate it the best way that they can without feeling that pressure, that additional pressure. I think, was it Joyce, you said earlier that life can be hard anyway. We have this environment that, we don't know. We just don't know. So they're saying March the 8th, but we don't know whether that's going to be extended. We're just giving dates after date. People can't plan. People can't do things. And I think that it's very, very important to sometimes just take a pause and listen to our children, listen to one another about how we're feeling about what we're doing, and look at how we can have or make some solutions. My grandson used to do play dates. Our children used to meet up with their friends. Maybe, I don't know how possible this is to those friends have Zoom meetings and let them just have a space where they're just talking to each other and having a conversation. Give them that space within reason. And yes, we have to look at safeguarding, but I really do believe that you have children that are isolating themselves, want to go to school, having all these pent up feelings. We've not even touched on what happened the last year with Black Lives Matter, and how that was another thing that impacted some of our young people in terms of their lives, their future within the pandemic. And so there's so much that people are going through, but it's really about how we sometimes just take a pause, look at where we are as individuals, and try and support each other as we are individuals, different families. What works for one is not going to work for another. And just be open and be transparent and honest so that we can support each other in real ways.
Thank you for that, because I think that just kind of brings some of the thoughts together. And I just wanted to pick up particularly on the safeguarding, because we have seen, as Dorothy said, an increase in referrals to safeguarding, online grooming, all of the domestic violence has increased. And I just wanted to ask Monica to just really just give some key messages, safeguarding messages, to parents, and for adults and carers, because there's also adult safeguarding. So we've seen increase in reports of the elderly being abused as well during this pandemic. So yeah, just some key points, Monica, on this.
Yes, thank you for that sort of introduction. We, although I've been watching a show recently, Rip Off Britain. So when you talked about
Mm,
elderly, it's not just about physical abuse, it's also their finances. So
Yes.
scammers, are also trying to infiltrate and take advantage of the circumstances that we're in. To our parents, I can encourage you, uh, paedophiles and people that want to harm your children, they haven't stopped doing what they're doing. So, as any parent, your responsibility is to, whilst you're kind of trying your best to do the best you can, always check in on what your child is looking at on online. If your child is spending much more time in the bedroom, create a space in the living room. I know we have to allow for me time. That's important as well. But always check in. If you've got a child, young person who's always behind closed doors, that should trigger an alarm. But try and make sure they have their privacy, but also you at least have the opportunity to check in on what they're looking at. I did it with my own children when they were teenagers, not just children, teenagers. So be vigilant. If there are changes in a child's behaviour, if there are changes in their language, their attitude, the kind of things they might want to watch, if they're staying up when you've gone to bed and they're watching television, again, be mindful of what it is they might be, allowing themselves to see to safeguard them. I'd also say that be careful of the child's mental health. I mentioned it earlier, and Susan brought up this issue of giving space for people to talk about how they feel. It's easy when you're at home and everybody's there, particularly if you've got a number of children, that one child will stop doing their talking and then they internalize their experience, their fear. They might know a friend who's lost a parent. They might know a friend who's lost a grandma or a grandpa, and even some children that have died. And so we need to ensure that we allow our children to talk. Key to talking is not just the talking element, it's listening.
Yes.
Don't just
mm,
listen to what people are saying, listen to what's not
mm,
being said.
mm,
Yes.
Check for body language, because sometimes someone will tell you, I'm fine, I'm okay. And if that okay then doesn't marry up with the smile or the expectations around how they interact with the family, take the child to one side. There's nothing wrong with that. Go and sit, for a few minutes in the bedroom and have a
mm,
conversation. You don't want to talk in front of everybody, but how do you really feel? And open questions. I know people might not know that, but don't put words into the young person's mouth. Give them the chance. Tell me, how has it been for you today? And then stop talking
Mm.
to give them the chance to respond. We're quick sometimes. I heard an adage that people are, in terms of listening, we are quick to respond rather than to listen to what's being said. I haven't quoted it very well, but I'll find the quote
mm,
and send it through. So listen to what's being said rather than
mm,
listening to respond to what you're hearing.
Mm.
mm,
I think that's probably, I don't want to waffle on too long, but they're the kind of things. And with our older grandparents or elderly relatives that you haven't been able to see throughout the lockdown. Again, although you might not be able to go into the home, you can still go and knock on the window and
mm,
let them know that you're around. I do it with my
mm,
neighbour next door. I go and knock on the door and stand back and just say, how are things going for you? Her husband has recently gone into a nursing home, but I just say, just have a chat because now she's isolated. Just to have a chat.
Mm.
mm,
You can have a chat through the window. Make
mm,
sure that if you've got any relatives who had access to their phones, which they will do, and if something comes through the post or a phone call comes through they're not sure about, just say to them, tell the person, I'll give you a number, give me a number, and I'll let my niece, I'll let my daughter, I'll let somebody call you back, rather than them having to try and engage with the person that's trying to
mm,
pressure them out of money. I saw one
mm,
man, it was over £40,000 they managed to get out of his savings, on the one hand. So our elderly are also people that we need to be mindful of in ensuring that they're kept safe throughout this period too.
Mm,
Back to
mm.
you, host.
No, and I just think, you know, this is what we're talking about. This series is called Connect, and Connect is about reaching out and connecting and using the different forms of connections to just check in and making sure that people are okay, whether it's your neighbours, whether it's your friends, people that can't go out. We are in the middle of a pandemic. There is discussion. You know, the Brazilian strain, the new variant, and we've been told that things will get worse before it gets better. There's the vaccine. I'm not even going to ask about the vaccine because that's a whole separate discussion and debate that will be on the Illuminate, which is the Church of God of Prophecy platform, tomorrow evening, starting at 6:30, where there'll be a live discussion with pastors discussing that topic from a theological and faith-based perspective. So I'd like everybody to tune into that because it does have an impact. It has an impact on the elderly well-being, child health and well-being. You know, Monica, you talked about children because when there is loss and there's someone's bereaved in a family, we tend to go to the siblings and or the children and or the wife or the husband or the spouse, the widower, and we give our condolences, and sometimes we forget the children. And it struck me over recent months when I started to think about it, I thought, my God, we've had a lot of our young people that have lost grandparents and have lost parents. And, you know, who's listening, talking to them? You know, if grandparents are there and they can't see grandparents anymore, it's a little bit what, like Michelle said, a child thought she'd done something wrong because she couldn't go to school. And it's almost like we've forgotten that those grandchildren and great-grandchildren that have lost grandparents. And that, you know, we're talking about mental health, and there was some tips about who shared the tips for mental health and well-being for the children. I think that's so important. And we had the poster up, and I think it'd be good to put those flyers back up again, because just to remind us, you know, and those organizations where children and parents and teachers can go to. I've had someone that's texted me and said that there is a counselling service called Kooth. It's an online virtual counselling service that children can use, and we want to make you know, just signpost, and we've got to be in a position to signpost our parents and children, not to forget we have Sentient, which is a counselling service that the Church of God of Prophecy has put together, and it is open for the community. Trained, experienced counsellors who receive supervision, and that service is there as well. I can see you chomping, Monica, so I'll let you come back in. Oh no, you wasn't. I thought you wanted to come back in, but I'll ask.
I was just agreeing with what you were saying. Yes.
All right, it's Sue. Sue, you wanted to say something.
I just keep feeling that we need to just stress about keeping the communication open. Just keep communication open amongst our families. Just a thought, because I think as much as parents need to talk to each other, there are single parents that need somebody to talk to and have a conversation. If we're not having those open and honest conversations, we're not going to get the support that we need. I've watched something and the husband says, you know, can I tell you this? No judgment. And he just says exactly how he feels. And there's no judgment. There's no... And I used to chuckle about it when I watched this program, but it was a free space to say what you are really feeling. And you're not, and you know, you can't be offended or upset by some of the things that are being said if that's their truth. And I think when we're in this pandemic, we need to give space for our young people,
Yes.
for our children. Let them write something down, put it in a bowl. Everybody write something down and pick it out like Secret Santa as they used to do. And everybody read that statement of some. So if that person feels uncomfortable about sharing how they're really feeling, and then just praying to each other. Don't let anybody feel guilty. I think our children start to hide. They stop communicating because they don't feel they have the space to say what's really going on. And we need to make that space for them. Thanks, Sister Joyce.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
But Sister Joyce,
Susan,
can I just say,
you. Oh, sorry. No, I was just
sorry.
going to
Go
jump
ahead,
on the
Michelle.
said, on the back of what Susan said, and that's important. And if we didn't bring it out enough, we really should have done. That there are single parents,
That's right.
who, you know, who don't, who can't get respite, who can't get a break. You know, Daddy comes home so you can go out. And I think again, it's important as a church community, women in particular, that we remember those who are single parents and how we can reach out to them. There are some, you know, women in our organisation who don't have their own children, who can act as that, if you like, extension of support if they're in a position to that, to just touch base. And you know, you do the, might not be able to physically do it, but let mom go and have a bath while, you know, might be practical for some things. But you know, we can try and be creative in how we can promote to each other in this kind of.
I think that is such an important point. Over to you, Michelle.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, and I think as parents, you need to be mindful of yourself. I know for me, sometimes I feel, especially when I hear the government say they're not be going to March, what about me? What about my career? What about what I need to do? And sometimes you do get very frustrated that you can't get your own job done and you just feel that you're here just for the children, going from one child to another child. You go to bed, you get up and do the same routine all over again. And, you know, I think it was, you know, Sue who said, you need to take time out for you as well. If you can't go out, that's fine. Sometimes, you know, even at lunchtime, give them their meal and just stand out in the back garden, because I've done that just so that I can breathe through before I come back and then do what I need to do. Because I think we forget that the main parent who's usually doing the child has had to put their own life on hold. And I don't think we'll ever go back to as it was. You know, recently I did an online parents' evening for my son. And obviously the question came back, how did you find it? Should we keep like this? So life is going to change, and we need to be able to change with that and be flexible for us as parents, but also for our children.
Wow. Now, you won't believe that it's 22 minutes past 9 and we need to close in 8 minutes. So the time's just gone by so quickly. And I think I'm just going to ask you to, you'll get a chance to say one thing each, and that's just about it. But I think there's a question, what can families do to support each other? So we've talked about schools, we've talked about parents, we've talked about children, but, you know, what can families do to support each other from a self-help? And you've got one sentence each. Don't all rush.
I think you can just check in on each other and make sure that we are okay. So you've got to just check in on somebody and just make sure that they're okay and that they are coping.
Just check in, and that's really practical advice. Go ahead, Michelle, I think it was you.
No, I was going to say the same. It's communication. It really is communication. I rang a friend the other Saturday and I just said hello and she let rip. Then after she finished, she goes, thank you. I'm like, okay, bye. We put her on the phone. And she just needed somebody who understood where she was coming from, understood the problems. She said what she wanted to say, and she knows she's talking in confidence. What she said isn't going to go any further. and we put the phone down. I might not speak to her again for another 2-3 weeks, but I know she's okay.
It's just almost having like somebody you can buddy with, who could just,
Exactly.
where you can just be able to vent. Yes, that's important. Dorette?
Just allow for changes of behaviour. Don't take things personally. Because I think once you're encroaching on, you're all crammed into a small space, that intensity will grow. Just not to take things personally. Stand back and breathe, and then we can start again.
Yeah.
No, that's really important. And Monica?
Find something to laugh about. Might not be easy. We've got our families. I include the Easy family with that as well. And we always create a space so we can have something to laugh about. So that releases, if you like, some positive things in each of us.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely fantastic. And Alni, what would you say?
I would say to talk. I would say to talk, express how you're feeling, don't hold back. So that's what I would say. Because I'm into counseling anyway, I do believe in people expressing how they're feeling and what they're thinking without them feeling judgmental. And as I agree with Sue that everyone needs to be able to take care of themselves. And as Monica said about laughing, we tend to have I like to have a laugh now and again, and sometimes I'll phone our children and then we'll have a laugh together in the midst of this chaos. Yeah, so that's my take on things.
Yeah, that is so important. And I think for everybody, for me, I've been cooking some Jamaican dishes that I've never done before. Honestly, I've done I had lessons on doing cornmeal porridge. I've done that. I've done cornmeal porridge. I've done fry fritters. I've done all sorts. And yeah, just doing something that you wouldn't normally do, and just trying something out. And I started walking too. So yeah, let's and I know I just want to thank all of our parents, everyone that's tuned in. I also want to say thank you, because we have, again, on a Sunday, we have every Sunday the Illuminate sessions, 7:30 till 9, and every week there is a slot for children. With our national children's ministries, directors and leaders, and we just need to thank them and applaud them for all the work that they do. And we see the children participating every week, showing their talents and their gifts, and they do a fantastic work. And whilst we've talked a lot about children, there's teenagers as well, and they're doing phenomenally well still. But let us continue to have faith. Let us continue to hold on in hope. And I thank all the teachers. We thank all the teachers out there. Ed teachers, you're doing a phenomenal job. Dorette and
Yes, they are.
there that are trying to keep education and schools going for our children. We want to thank you for everything that you do. And our parents, Boris says that he's in awe of you. We are in awe of all our parents, all parents. In all of our diverse families that are out there, we really want to thank you. And as our panelists have said tonight, pick up the phone, ring someone, keep the channels open for connection, because maybe that one telephone call could be all that you need. I just want to thank our panelists. Monica, thank you. I want to thank Dr. Chimeka. Michelle, thank you. Dorette, our pastoral support and former head of year, Sue, who's our former children's ministries director. Thank you for your expertise and for joining our panel tonight. Ali and I are going to wave you goodbye, and we're just going to close up, but don't go, stay online. Bless you. I always say, Alni, the last word goes to you, because when we were discussing when we were discussing this topic, Alni, you felt that this was such an important topic for us to discuss. Why was that?
I suppose being a parent, a grandparent, and I've seen how, I looked at my children and other and listening. I've been listening to the radio and hearing regular discussions about parents feeling really frustrated. Sometimes they don't feel as if, they're getting the support that they need, especially in schools and for families who've got more than one children, and they have to be, changing things around. And for me, my heart goes out. And if perhaps we ought to put on something that we can discuss and share with the wider public, so that they know, as a community, when we talk about connecting, we're talking different ways with families, with young people, with children. So yeah, that's the reason why I thought it's just, especially with this second lockdown, and now we're being told it's been extended until the 4th of March. So I think what took place tonight, I'm sure it helped quite a lot of our parents.
Yes, and we're also we're thinking of a part 2. But having more parents come on to share, not just share the real, but to share what's worked for them. So if you are a parent out there and you want to join the Connect Live series, please get in touch with your regional director. We're get in touch via the COGOP website. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear what your experiences of lockdown has been. And if you want to feature as part of our February series, please let us know. We love to hear your stories, and there's different ways that we can do that. So without any further ado, we just thank everyone who has tuned in. Our media team, I'm sure as we close out, we will see some of the comments that have come in, and we just want to thank you all tonight. God bless you. Have a great month until we see you at the end of the 28th of February. We will see you for the next Connect Live series. God bless you. God bless you.
Worthy, worthy, of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory, all the glory, Lord. You are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all, Jesus. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory, all the glory, Lord. You are worthy of it all. Worthy, worthy, you are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. Yes, you deserve the glory. Day and night, night and day. Yes, Lord. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. Let incense rise. Day and night, night and day. You are worthy, Lord. Yes, you are. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. You deserve it, Lord. Yes, you do. You are worthy of it all. Yes, you are. You are worthy of it all. Jesus, for from you are